What did your child do that almost got them arrested, but made you secretly proud? My 15-year-old son, Marcus, has always been the quiet kid. Never caused trouble, did his homework, stayed out of fights. So, when I got a call from the police station at 11 p.m. on a Tuesday night saying they had my son in custody, my heart nearly stopped. The officer said Marcus was caught breaking into the abandoned grocery store on 5th Street, breaking and entering, trespassing, possible theft charges. I was furious as I drove across town to pick him up, rehearsing the lecture I was going to give him. But when I got to the station, the story got really weird. The officer, this older guy named Officer Williams, pulled me aside before I could even see Marcus. "Your son wasn't stealing anything," he said, scratching his head and looking genuinely confused. "We found him inside with bolt cutters and a crowbar, but he was putting food into the store, not taking it out." Apparently, Marcus had been breaking into this old supermarket every single night for 3 weeks. But instead of robbing the place, he'd been turning it into some kind of secret food bank for struggling families in our neighborhood. The building had been sitting empty for 2 years after the grocery chain went bankrupt. Still had working electricity and refrigeration units. Marcus had somehow figured out how to get the power turned back on by calling the utility company and pretending to be a licensed contractor doing repairs. When the cops searched the place with their flashlights, they found the entire store organized like it was still operating. Shelves carefully stocked with canned goods, fresh produce arranged in the coolers, frozen foods properly stored, even a handwritten sign-up sheet by the front door. Officer Williams showed me photos on his phone. Marcus had created this whole elaborate system, different sections for families with children, elderly people living alone, anyone who needed help. He'd even made little instruction cards explaining where everything was located and how much people could take. "We followed him for 2 hours tonight before we arrested him," the officer explained. "Watched him deliver groceries to 4 different houses using his bike and a trailer he built himself. All elderly people or single mothers. Kid had a whole delivery route planned out with specific times." When I finally saw Marcus sitting in the holding cell, he looked absolutely terrified, but not ashamed. His clothes were dirty from crawling through the back window, and his hands had cuts from handling the bolt cutters. I asked him where he got all the food to stock this place. The amount of groceries in those photos would have cost hundreds of dollars. "I've been buying it with my lawn mowing money," he said quietly, not making eye contact. "And I've been asking grocery store managers for their expired stuff they were going to throw away anyway. Most of them said yes when I explained what it was really for." Turns out Marcus had been spending every single dollar he earned cutting grass all summer to buy food for people who couldn't afford it. He had identified 12 families in our neighborhood who were struggling financially and created this elaborate system to help them without making them feel embarrassed about accepting charity. The abandoned store was perfect because people could come late at night when no one would see them. Marcus had even figured out how to print up fake receipts on her home computer, so it felt like actual shopping instead of taking handouts. "Mrs. Patterson hasn't had fresh vegetables in months because all her money goes to medical bills," he explained, finally looking up at me. "And the Wilson family with the twin babies. They're choosing between buying diapers and groceries every single week. I see them at the dollar store buying the cheapest stuff." Officer Williams came back 20 minutes later and said the building owner had been contacted and filled in on the situation. Turns out the old man was so impressed with what Marcus was doing, he didn't want to press any charges. Actually, the officer said, starting to grin, he wants to officially donate the building to make this a legitimate food bank. Apparently, his own family went hungry during the Great Depression, and he knows what it's like. All charges were dropped that night, but Marcus made me promise not to tell anyone in our family or neighborhood what he'd been doing. He said helping people shouldn't be about getting credit or recognition from others. 3 months later, that old grocery store officially reopened as the Riverside Community Food Bank. Marcus volunteers there every Saturday morning, but he still won't let them put his name on any plaques or mention him in the newspaper articles about how it got started. When people ask how the food bank came to exist, he just shrugs and says someone in the neighborhood had a good idea and the community supported it. He's never once taken credit for changing 12 families' lives and starting something that now helps over 50 families every month.